terms of the challenges here. This one's kind of a more touches on the sort of the cultural piece, really, that says, you're an organisation that has set an ambition. You want to do something to reduce the environmental impact of what you do as an organisation. Then it's about, to a large extent, sort of hearts and minds, really, that says you've got, an organisation, say in the instance of Unipart, with 12,000 people in it. How do you pivot that sort of ship to get everybody that is making a decision every single day that on the face of it probably doesn't feel like it's having a carbon impact, but actually it does most often, that every decision we make has a carbon impact. I refer to it at Unipart as trying to improve the carbon consciousness of the organisation. And you've got sort of leaders at the very top of the organisation. You take, our CEO, for example, who is absolutely behind our decision to do absolutely everything we can do to reduce carbon in what we do. So really, sort of this last sort of challenge is to reflect on, what are those key components in trying to improve the carbon consciousness of an organisation and us as society, really, and some ideas around that.
I think, for me, a lot of this culture change, we've talked about the top-down element, the compliance element and the governmental changes that just have to turbocharge everything. But then when you think about leadership within an organisation, just to set the tone around what is important, we've already set the tone to say we're going to be safe at work. We're going to be respectful to our individual, the individuals that we work alongside. We expect to have certain working conditions as a result of, how culture has developed over time. And, you go around the world and that's slightly different. But nevertheless, there is a norm. We just have to bring that, I think your term around sort of like carbon consciousness is really important. That we've got another sort of like paradigm to work with. We talk about KPI measures in terms of quality, cost, delivery, safety these days. To have an environmental element to that in the mix of the decisions making that we do, I think is really important. And I come back to when culture's behaviour, leadership creates behaviour within an organisation, and a leader will ultimately influence the people that are around them. So this isn't really somebody writing down on a piece of paper at a board level, here's what we are going to do in the next 20 years. It's about how people work in their teams. And that level of teamwork, I think, is essential to start making those small behaviour changes that start to become a norm. Because, the circular bit of whether this is a top-down or a bottom-up journey is that the levels of acceptance and the norms at the lower level, at the people level of our whole organisation, whether it's a business or a community, start to set an expectation about what we are instructed to do by government and those policymakers that sort of like help society. And therefore, I think you can accelerate a change if everybody wants to go down that journey. I mean, when I was much younger, I can remember switching. It seemed to me like we switched from leaded to unleaded fuel overnight. It just seemed to be like that. And
showing your age now, Chris.
Yes.
The horse to what? Sorry,
Yeah.
the horse to
Yeah. But there are changes that can happen really quickly. This is a complex topic, and I think we have to simplify the topic. Yeah. We have to make sure that people understand that at the end of the day, there are some things that is just the right thing to do. And, to have the, in inverted commas, the right thing to do, that's all about people follow leaders, I think. And the agendas that are set at the level of the influence that you see every day is the most, is a really important way of sort of starting to get some behaviour change. And therefore, and that pyramid, if you like, cascades up through organisational levels. And, I don't think we can wait for somebody to tell us what to do. In the end, a lot of the conversation we had at the beginning of this discussion was about rules and measures and, really complex topics that seem alien to most people.
Yeah.
And actually, it's about what am I doing today? And I think there is just something around, what is acceptable at work? Because I think we're talking in a work context. What's acceptable in work, and then how does that sort of leach out into how we operate, how we work in our communities, how we expect people to behave, and then what we'd expect from our own leaders to push the boundaries of what's possible for us. I think it's great that we've set, a net zero target, which is more aggressive than the governmental compliance that's telling us what to do. That's the sort of behaviour that I'd hope to see everywhere. But it's that then relentless discussion about the environmental elements of everything that we do, alongside all the other things that we can't forget. Because this is almost like a complex normal. I guess that's the best term for me. Is what becomes normal, and I think that it's down to everybody to find their own way of contributing, but. Everybody needs to be influenced and shown the way a little bit, whether it's a father leading his son, whether it's in a business environment leading their team, whether it's team working in terms of just finding the way forward under a, say, like problem solving event or something like that. Just has to be in the consciousness. I think that's the best term, that I can put it to.
Yeah.